Welcome back. Panel is here. We have Raul Bali from WABE, Devin Barrington Ward, as well as Spiro Amburn. Thank you both so much, or all of you guys, to be here. We're going to continue. We had a really spicy panel this Sunday. If you didn't watch the Georgia vote, lots to talk about. Devin, let's start with you on your last thought. Let's get into it.
Yeah, I just feel like, to my friend's point here, Republicans have touted, Georgia being the #1 state to do business, job numbers, all of these other things. And as a progressive, I don't always agree with those policies, but that has been the talking point that has resonated with a lot of their base and even independents in this state. Donald Trump is a distraction to that. And I think Brian Kemp knows that. We've seen the relationship between Governor Kemp and President Trump. It has been very dicey at times. Right now, it seems like they're playing nice. And I think part of the reason why he made the decision that this is a race that he's going to pass on, his name is being considered as on the short list for president in 2028. Right. And so I don't think he wants to muddle himself in this situation where Republicans are being set up to lose by Donald Trump in Georgia because they're focused on transgender votes in sports and issues that are not really their bread and butter issue, which is the economy. That's what people want to talk about.
It's interesting because even, Zach, in your interview, you asked Buddy Carter, is the transgender issues one of his top priorities? And you listed a series of other priorities, and he said yes.
He said it is among them. Yeah. And Congressman Carter was also careful too to point to other things. Energy independence is an issue. He said the economy was one of his top issues. But yeah, you heard him talking a lot about these social issues, particularly trans kids in girls' sports. Devin, you made this point about what 2026, the midterms, will look like. And you're a progressive. I don't get the sense you want to see Republicans do particularly well in this election. I don't think that's a shock. Spiro, you're a Republican. I know you do. There's a world in which President Trump is still unpopular at midterm time. The economy is not doing well at midterm time, and that would probably benefit Democrats. Is there another world, though, where President Trump bucks this trend, things start turning in the right direction? Is that what Spiro Republicans are hoping for?
Absolutely.
That helps them?
I think that's what Republicans are banking on. Certainly no one knows what it's going to look like 12 months from now. Right. But one thing that has occurred to me is that there are more Democratic candidates who have announced at this point than there have Republican candidates. And, I think there's some valid points that have been made here. I think everyone's trying to look into that crystal ball and predict how the Trump effect, if you will, is going to be. Republicans are hopeful that that's going to help in 26.
I think some of that Republican delay is because of Kemp, though, too, right?
Well, it's part of it, but there's also races in 28. It's never too late to look out into the future.
Yeah.
I think Governor Kemp is looking at that, but you'll have another U.S. Senate race. Warnock will be up for re-election then.
Yep.
And so the calculus, I think, on the Republican side is, do I go this year? Do I go in 26, or do I maybe wait it out and see how things play out?
But being at the Democratic State Party meeting where they elected Charlie Bailey, no matter what, there's an important conversation on the Democratic side about messaging.
Absolutely.
And the word that State Senator Josh Mahorn used, who's announced for Lieutenant Governor, he goes, authentic messaging.
Yeah.
I think Democrats need to figure out their messaging and on what issues, including how do you respond on some of those attacks aimed at the transgender community. So there is a question about messaging on that side, on the Democratic side.
And we've spent a lot of time here talking about President Donald Trump and his impact on these upcoming races. You talk about messaging here. The Democratic Party is going through, they've got a new Democratic Party chair in the state party here. There's sort of a retuning of the party that they've said they're trying to work out what the path forward looks like. Devin, is there a challenge for Democrats as well? Stacey Abrams, you talk about messaging. Stacey Abrams was a really very gifted communicator. She raises a lot of money. She boosted the profile of Georgia Democrats and Georgia politics really as a competitive state around the country. But she lost twice in the governor's race. She's a progressive. Do Democrats have to navigate these similar trends that Republicans do, where you may have a tendency to nominate somebody who's more progressive in the primary, who may have some challenges in the general?
Well, I think less about her being a progressive, and some of it is just timing, right? She ran in 22, which was a midterm election, which the president's party that is in power typically does not do well in midterms, right? So it's also a timing issue thing as well. And so I think that if she decides to run for governor again, I think this time might look a little different, particularly if she's able to make it past a Democratic primary. I think out of anyone that has been named or is considering, I still think that she's the strongest because she's still going to be able to raise money. She still has the infrastructure. She has the ground game that a lot of the other candidates are people who are potentially going to be candidates on the Democratic side just don't have. But I do think there is a messaging issue, and I think it speaks to why sometimes I do regret that there's not more progressives in the room when we're having these conversations, because it's not necessarily, oh, we need to double down on supporting transgender athletes, right? Particularly because right now, I think the last thing that I read in the NACCC,
NCAA?
Yes, NCAA. There's like maybe 10 or 12 transgender
Charlie
athletes.
Baker, the NCAA leader, said that back in December.
Across the entire country, right? So I think where your message is right there is Republicans are trying to waste your time on issues that are not really issues. Right now, what is an issue is egg prices are still over $8. Right? And that is the bread and butter issues that's really going to motivate people. And I think if Democrats are smart, they really try and make the Republicans kind of look immature for addressing some of these cultural issues that the average American, the average Georgian, that's not what they're talking about. They're talking about why everything is so expensive.
And there was some criticism of Democrats, at least in the last presidential election, that they focused too much on the culture war issues and not so much on those bread and butter issues. Spiro, I mean, is this going to be the strategy for Republicans, or do you think they should shy away from those culture war issues?
Well, look, I do agree that most reasonable Americans don't believe girls should be playing in boys' sports. I agree that that's an issue that polls well for Republicans generally. However, I think Republicans need to be talking about more than that. If they make that their primary campaign theme, I think that's a mistake. I don't disagree that, it's something that voters, it's not at the top of their list. Of course, regarding the price of eggs and the economy, I mean, that started under the Biden administration. But, once you obtain the office of the president,
right.
you own the problem.
Right.
So that's what I'm saying. At some point, Republicans are going to have to start talking about solutions and have results and not keep talking about
I think both parties, because let me remind you all that AJC UGA poll, both Republicans and Democrats are seen as highly unfavorable. Over 50% of those voters surveyed. Raul, we want to get you in for the last thought here on just the campaign moving forward. Zach, if you have something to add.
I mean, you've covered Georgia politics for a long time. It feels like we are in campaign mode right now. It feels like we just got out of campaign mode. We've got another election years away, but it's coming so quickly. Are we just in perpetual campaign mode now?
It feels like it, because I just remember, in the early 2000s, we would laugh at Florida, but what Florida was going through, that it was year round. It is year round now for us. I mean, I think
you just filled out your bingo card, signy die.
Yes, we did. We did just do that. I mean, the governor's final day to sign bills is coming up this week, and then I think we're going to have we're going to have people still announcing for Senate, a small break, and then the statewide. Yes,
and then it's on.
It does feel like it's year round, but the question is, when do regular voters tune in? Right. I think that's an important question we need to figure out.
That's good. We may
not know. I hate to cut in, but we're getting the wrap here. Hopefully, people, if you're watching right now, you're tuned in and you're hearing from the experts. Campaign season, it's on. It's staying with us. Hope you stay with us too. We'll see you later.